Hello everyone. Now I absolutely love classic Hollywood makeup. I also love the 90s, but that's kind of a variation of classic Hollywood makeup anyway. Everything we see pretty much has been done before. So I am going to go back to when it was done before, and I'm going to do Audrey Hepburn for you today. I love Audrey Hepburn, I love her makeup. I also love Elizabeth Taylor, so maybe I'll do her next. But I thought, let's start with a little bit of Audrey Hepburn, as makeup hasn't really changed that much. You could still wear this look and look breathtaking. Products have changed, makeup hasn't so much. So, a little bit of Audrey Hepburn. First off, I'm putting on a little bit of strobe cream with a Real Techniques setting brush. I like this brush for doing base because it's small, it's fluffy, so you can really buff products in. I'm going to move on to brows and eyes first, but I will conceal the eyes too. I am going to change my brows so they are more like Audrey Hepburn's, just so you can really get a feel for the look really. That was strobe cream, available in our Sam and Nick edit. Okay, next up, let's pop some concealer on. Now I'm a massive fan of these matte conceal and correct palettes. You get lots of different colours in one palette, so I love it. I also love the concealer that happens to be in there, which is the MAC Studio Finish Concealer. It's brilliant for covering a multitude of sins, although I wouldn't really call them sins, but a multitude of problems. So I'm just mixing the colours until I get the sort of colour that I want, and I'm popping that all over my lid as a little bit of a base. If you're someone that finds that your eyeshadow really moves, swap this out for a primer instead, an eyelid primer, which will not move. Taking that right up to my brows because I want to have a really lovely blank canvas to start off with. The brush that I am using is my Real Techniques Expert Concealer Brush. Another reason I love this product is that MAC do shades for everyone. So I know I can use this product and pretty much everyone can go out and get it if they wish. Over the top of the concealer, I'm going to go in with another MAC product. This is MAC Studio Fix Powder Foundation. I'm using this as an eyeshadow base because it has a really good coverage, so I love to use this as base. It's a foundation powder, so it has a little bit more coverage than I think a lot of eyeshadows have. Did that make sense when I said that? It's got, I think I kind of stumbled a bit. It's got a lot more coverage than I think a lot of eyeshadows that are bases have. So that's why I like it. Again, it comes in tons of colours. The colour that I'm using is NW20. Do you see how that gives such a nice coverage straight away? I'm going to turn this light down because I think it's bleaching me out a bit. Then on to brows. Now the brows I need to manipulate a little bit more to be more like Audrey Hepburn than mine currently are. However, with this makeup you can wear your normal brows. I just want to really give homage to Audrey, and I like her brow shape quite a lot. So I'm going to change them a little bit. I have got Brow Queen, I think this is. Eyebrow Queen Brow Pro in 4 medium brown, and I like how sharp it is, and it's got a like little angle to it, and it's in a very, very small kind of triangle shape, and I need to start with my underneath of my brows. This is probably a bit darker than the colour I would normally go for, but I'm trying to reposition my brows, so I need to go a little bit darker. They almost have this like little square and then a little jump just in the corner, so I'm just going to make that little jump there. So I go almost out a long ways, and it just jumps up and kind of goes slightly out, that sort of shape. And then I'm going to use the other end of the brush just to pull that product upwards. So it's softening it a tiny bit. If that makes sense, because it was quite strong to start off with, but So you can see I haven't put any product in the inside of the brow. I've just been working with the product that I've put around the outside. And I've got a lot thicker brows. So you can see my brow comes down a little bit lower. So I'm just going to pop some concealer on my brow line. Same concealer again that I used before. And then over the top of that with the powder that I used, the Studio Fix powder, to really hold that into place. We're getting there. And then you're just going to repeat on the other side. So you can see I'm really trying to make sure I get that little jump on the brow, which is so hard to do. I want to follow the line on so it's smooth. But Audrey Hepburn's brows always had a little jump, if that makes sense. Then onto eyes. And I've got this MAC palette that I've had for about a million years. I am going to take a little bit of this one, which is Omega. Probably a little bit of this one, which is Wedge, and maybe, no, that one's Croquette, and maybe a little bit of Wedge as well. But I will let you know as I go which ones I'm using. I'm going to start off with the Omega. Now, Omega is, for me, the kind of colour that my under eyes go. So it's a great shadow colour for me to create a little bit of depth in the socket line. So that's why I've chosen it. So if you look at my under eyes before I had anything on, then they looked quite like this colour, and that creates a really nice natural shade. So I'm just taking that in that crease. And I'm using a Real Techniques based shadow brush. I'm just letting it rock back and forth for me. It doesn't matter your eye shape for this, because you'll still have a socket. So you can still use it. If you find that you can't see it because your socket is quite deep set, then you can always go here with it and make a little kind of triangle here. Like that. So you see it a bit more. I'm then going to go in with a little bit of Wedge. Wedge is a similar tone, but it has a tiny bit more warmth to it, a little bit more red. Hardly any, but a tiny bit, and I just want to warm that up just a tiny bit. Now I also want to take the Wedge just a tiny bit more out. Now Audrey went a little bit more out in the corner than Marilyn did. Marilyn's was very much a cut crease socket, whereas Audrey's was a little bit more out in that corner. So again, following from the lash line and pulling it up slightly. I'm just going to take my Rebel Edge fan brush in a little bit of a slightly darker tone. And I just want to just pull that out there and then sweep it round. So I'm getting a little bit of a shape through here. You can see it's so subtle. That's what we want, subtle. Just using the brush on its side to pull it out, and then kind of turning it so that the point is going through the socket as well. So I'm then going to take my, again, MAC Dare Black. This is a dual Dare All Day waterproof liner. It's dual ended, so it's got a liner on this end and a flick liner on one end, and then a cream pencil liner on the other, that are both supposed to be waterproof. This is new, so I don't know if it does last really, really well. Then I'm going to use the other end to create our Audrey flick. I would normally use a gel liner for this because I just prefer them, but the fact that this is dual ended, I'm going to use it completely. I just want to go back in with my powder, and I can see that I just needed a little bit there. You know when you get those kind of lines just in the corner of the eye? My eyes have that. Do you know what I mean? So I have to look that way to get rid of that one, and look that way to get rid of that one, so that it stretches the eye out so I can get rid of those fine lines. That's why I don't like using a pen, because those fine lines appear again. So I might use a gel as well. I'm going to see. Let's just have a go with this. Sometimes I find these pens bleed a lot more. than a gel liner. Now again, Audrey's liner was slightly thicker than Marilyn's, so I'm going to make it slightly thicker. I'm not quite as big a flick at the end. Marilyn's was a lot longer. Still a flick, but not as much. Probably about that much. Okay, might come back and go a little bit thicker with the liner. I'm unsure yet. Look, it's starting to bleed in the creases of my eyes, which it always does, which is why I don't use these normally, no matter what they crease on me. But I think I need my liner a bit thicker, because I am going to wear false lashes. Okay, I'm going to move on to skin, and then we can always come back and touch up the eyes. I'm going to take a little bit of Guerlain Perrault Gold, because I love the finish of this foundation. I'm going to take it in a 3, and I'm also going to take it in a 2. Please feel free to swap out products for what you have, because I know some of the products I use are quite expensive. You don't have to use these products. They're just the ones that I've chosen. You can still create this look with other stuff. So number 3, I'm just taking around the outside of my face. Again with my setting brush. And then number 2, I'm just going to do in the centre of the face and pull outwards. You can see the difference in colour. There's not too much of a difference. It's just slightly lighter. So it's going to lift that central panel of my face. Okay, I'm going to put a little bit of Becca concealer on. This is the Ultimate Coverage Concealer. It is Ultimate Coverage. I think I've got cream. I think I'm going to try Latte and see how dark it is. Maybe I do need cream. Cream is just going to lift that a little bit more. Back in with my Expert Concealer brush. Really softly buff that in. I keep a lot of my concealing to the very inner corner because that's where I have the darkness. And I'm doing a lot of pushing it into place. I want to put the colour back into my skin, so I've got a bit of Chanel Cream Bronzer. I'm going to use that on my cheeks. Tiny brush across the nose. Down my neck, a little bit in my hairline. Has anyone been watching Jack Ryan? I've finished the whole season 2 now. It was good. It was so good. Seal that into place with a little bit of Charlotte Tilbury bronzer. I tend to use that over my powder bronzer because it kind of, rather than having to powder it with a translucent powder or something, it just keeps the colour but it powders it into place. I just want to take a teensy bit of Coffee Walnut, which is a Pro Sculpt powder from MAC, and I just want a teensy bit contour. So I'm just using that just to create a tiny bit of contour. I had to use contouring quite a bit more in the 50s to 60s, and even more so in the 20s. We are very near there. I'm going to go in with a tiny bit more of my powder. I'm going to go for Omega and just run that under the eye. A little bit of light eye pencil just in the waterline. I did this a bit later because I wanted that black to seal and set in place before I put the light in. So it shouldn't transfer quite as much. This is by Kaja Wise. I don't know how you say it, I'm sorry. Mascara My Bottom Lashes. This is MAC again, Extended Play, Giga Black. And top lashes, Laura Mercier Caviar. Now when I'm using strip lashes, I mascara first. When I'm using individual lashes, I mascara second. Individual lashes you can only really use once anyway, whereas strip lashes, if I haven't put mascara on them, I can use them a couple of times. I'm then going to go on to lips, and I have got a Givenchy in homage to Audrey Hepburn again. This is Beige Mousseline number 11. It's one of my favourite colours actually. Around the outside of that, to make those lips stand out a tiny bit more, I'm going to use Iconic Nude by Charlotte Tilbury. Now Audrey's bottom lip was a tiny bit fuller, so I'm going to make sure I do that. Now I've picked up so many lipsticks. I've got MAC Honey Love, MAC Cream Sheen, but I've used so much MAC that I'm going to try and use something else. This is nice. This is Pink Sand from Bobbi Brown, and I think that's a nice tone. It's not too pink, it's not too coral. I think that will do the job nicely. I'm going to powder my under eyes and around my nose. I'm going to use the same powder, the MAC powder, because I don't want to reach for different products. So this is a foundation powder, but you can use it quite lightly. I'm going to keep that away from the tops of my cheeks because I don't want it to take that colour down. And then lastly on my cheeks, a little bit of blush. I have got this Cheeky Coral by Clarins. I don't want too much of this. Let me see how it comes out. It's going on the tops of my cheeks and pulling back. Oh, lashes. Lashes. Kiss Lashes in Lily. And there you have the finished Audrey Hepburn look. Hope you've enjoyed it, guys. I might do Elizabeth Taylor next because she is my ultimate fave. See you soon.